that I will share with you a story of artivision. How many of you know what did Professor Tu did to discover the solution for malarial drug, and how many of you know that story? So I don't have to repeat what is already known to the colleagues here. Anybody knows the story, details of the story, how traditional knowledge led to a Nobel Prize winning discovery? Because that is the most celebrated case where blending of traditional knowledge or indigenous knowledge or people's knowledge and the modern science have led to a breakthrough. And we will go through that case. We will discuss that. I'll stop at a point when you will have to speculate what is the next step. And I will see whether you can speculate what Professor Tu actually did, so that we can see how her mind worked and how our mind works. While the discoveries, we stop short of discoveries. CDRI, CMAP also worked on the same plant. Why is it that we couldn't reach the point where she reached? And what was the stumbling block? Where was the science not pursued according to its rigorous potential? Where I'm not trying to criticize anybody. I'm just saying there is something in the way we pursue science that prevents us from making breakthroughs. And I would like that we should grapple with that problem as to what happens in our mind. I often give the example of our very favorite, very celebrated runner, marathon athlete, Milkha Singh Ji, who recently expired, unfortunately. But he was a great hero, very huge success he achieved in his life, thorough gentleman. But you know what happened in Rome Olympics? Some of you know that. He was almost ahead of everybody, and then he looked back to see where others were, and he became fourth. I call that Milkha Singh syndrome. Very close to the discovery point, we start getting distracted. And then the profoundness of our potential goes down. So let's find out how many of you know this story, so that I don't repeat anything that is known to you. Anybody knows the details of how did this breakthrough take place in China, and why we, who were working at the same time on this plant, couldn't achieve those kind of derivatives, which finally led to the drug, which is now a drug of choice for those malarial patients who are either not responding to chloroquine or develop resistance to chloroquine. Anybody know the story? No? Well, this is from medical science, but we will also take something from material sciences. And we will try to take something from other disciplines. We will do that. The other thing I wish to do today, and I would like your opinion on that, if you will all agree, then only we will do it. Well, I received only 2 notes so far. I requested all of you to write 1-page note on any traditional knowledge with the potential of its validation through formal science. And this was an exercise to sort of embed deeply in our psyche that if there is a potential, if there is a functional knowledge, then we will try to find out science in it. Sometime as a full-fledged project, but sometime we will ask our juniors or our hobby, we will do a hobby project just to pursue our curiosity and find out why it works the way it does. And who knows, it will have the same outcome as Professor Tu from China had. So we need to figure it out. And to be able to figure that out, we need to write a page. So maybe after I present this case study, if you all agree, we will take time in the class today. I'm going to request you all to, either in a group of 2 or individually, as you wish, write 1 page. Write 1 page about any aspect of people's knowledge. It could be traditional knowledge, it could be contemporary knowledge, doesn't matter. But something that comes from below, something which comes from society. And then write a protocol. You can refer to any literature, you can research, write a protocol as to how would you validate. For instance, if copper vessel is recommended for keeping water in the night for human health purposes, then how would you establish the value of copper in improving our immunity? What kind of protocol you will follow? Or if cuscut, which has zinc in it, how will you establish the zinc leaches out of it? If does it, we don't know. There are different alloys of material, and we have a place for these alloys in our kitchen, in our cooking system, in our storing system. And why? Where are the studies which show? And then we can do a control of aluminum vessel, an iron vessel, and of course the alloy of tin, zinc, and copper. Then see what happens. So whether it is materials, whether it is plants, whether it is processes or chemical processes, whether it is fermented technologies, fermented food, whether it is a specific kind of processing of leather, for instance, which makes it last long, or a specific kind of paper that we make, which does not erode, the print on the paper does not erode for 500 years, unlike our normal prints of computer, which will vanish very quickly in terms of the ink will go away. So what are these technologies which stand their ground on functional utility, and yet their science is not known to us? So yes, this I will go through that, Pranami. What you're saying, Pranami Bhardwaj, you have a vague recollection. Let me share that screen and let us go through the story of this breakthrough, because I believe that this breakthrough will teach us something very critical, very critical. So let me just open. Sorry, was there anybody? Okay, so let me share this file. And what we're going to do, we're going to study one case study first, blending formal and informal science, a case study of organism, because I believe that this is, please stop. Because I believe that this is the most remarkable story of how, in a constrained environment, taking clue from the knowledge of the society, a solution is found to one of the biggest problems that contemporary society is facing. So let's look at what happened. So 40, now it is, I should correct it actually, it is not 40, it should be now 50 years. So, which is an old story, so it is 40. But around 50 years now, 50, 45 years. So Vietnam War, Cultural Revolution is taking place, and that year, which is before Nobel Prize was given to Tibetan. This story is old story. So what did she do? So Vietnam War was going on, and the soldiers were coming up, were getting affected by this parasite, malarial parasite. The US had a drug, mefloquine, but North Vietnam did not have a solution. North Vietnam asked China, please help us to find a solution. So Chairman Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai had a meeting in 1967, and 500 scientists are brought together. There's a paper that Miller and Su have written, which is in the journal Cell, very eminent journal, and this is drawn from that. So it was a time of Cultural Revolution. Research was not published. People didn't know what was happening, but nevertheless, effort was going on. And Professor Tu was then appointed principal investigator. She was in the Chinese Chinese Academy of Chinese Medical Science at Beijing. And she recalled later on in a published paper in Nature Medicine that young investigators were trying to find out the constituent which will have inhibitory effect against the parasite. And they started with traditional Chinese medicine. So look at that. They investigated 2,000 preparations, of which 640 were promising, of which 380 extract involving 200 herbs were chosen for testing. Unfortunately, no significant result emerged easily. What would you do in such a situation? The turning point came when they tried Artemisia annua, or sweet wormwood, and this showed some inhibition. Now, in the normal course, after you have screened 640 plants, you might give up. Oh, this is no good. Let us try to antimicrobial route. Let us find out from microorganisms, or let us do some synthetic chemistry. And we might not even give a fair chance, but they did. And I can tell you one thing. I don't remember any study of our country where we have screened 200 herbs, even for corona for that matter. We did try to send about 60 of them. As I mentioned in the last, before class, that I am still hoping that NII would help us to screen those samples that are lying in the institute. I had sent to Dr. Panda, and I've also sent some to CCMB. These were only few. But we need to screen hundreds of them. Then only the results will come. And this could become in the evening for 1 hour, let all the students work on this kind of mission, just as a part of nation building effort. So they found some effect. Now I will stop here. The subsequent experiments showed that much lower level of inhibition. What would you do now? If this is the case you have, what will you do next step? What will you do? The activity was found very promising, but the experiments are showing that its inhibition effect is very low. What will you do now? Just tell me. I'll write down. What will be the course of action that you will follow? Please tell me. What should we do? First step, anybody can come out. And you don't have to be an expert. Just guess. Ask pedagogical questions. If you are a scholar and you come across a situation where there is only one lead that you have out of 200, and even that is not showing very promising result, what will be the next course of action?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So I will check my protocol for my
What will you check? What will you check in the protocol?
Sir, I will check that my protocol is not, there is something wrong with my protocol. I will change in that my result are not agreeing.
So let us say, what element in protocol? Can you just speculate on a few using this case?
So my selection of species.
No. So selection is, we are working on one plant which is showing effect. Yes, Pranami?
Sir, I think when we select a plant, the geographical location plays a very important role. So I try to see if there is any variation on the basis of the geographical location at first. Then I'll also try to see the extraction method that I'm using. Because while extraction, the method or the protocol or even the solvent that we use, that also plays a very important role.
In method, can you elaborate? What will you check in method? What will you check in the method? I'll come to Piyush just in a minute. I'll come to you. What will you check in the method?
So the solvent, basically the solvent.
Solvent you mentioned. Solvent you mentioned. Solvent you mentioned. What else will you check?
that the temperature and other factors.
Temperature. What else? What are the other factors?
Um,
What will you check in the temperature? The degree of temperament, degree of at what temperature would you like to boil it or extract it or something else?
the temperature, if it plays any significant role, like if there is any variation because of the temperature.
What else?
Mm,
I will show you what exactly she did. So it just, yeah, go ahead.
Sir, vacuum pressures during extraction.
Anything else? All these things
also
you're
maybe
asking. Go ahead.
so maybe the part of the plant also, like if we are using the stem or the leaves, like from which part are we extracting, that also plays an important role.
Okay, okay.
Sir,
Okay. Yes, Piyush.
host response to the means this artemisinin, whether is there any other combination available with the artemisinin? So there is.
So what was happening, let me tell you, that they will be, when the trials were done, that question, of course, is the next one which I would wanted to ask, but since you have mentioned, I'll tell you now. The first question was, why is inhibiting effect so low? And that we will discover in a minute. They were able to find out quickly. And after that, they found that initially till the drug remained in the body, the effect was there. The moment drug got metabolized, the parasite, the malarial symptoms emerged again, and there was no effect. Then patient will be suffering. So these are the two major milestones in this. So first one is, what do we do to have higher effect? And second challenge is, what do we do to have this effect on an ongoing basis and not reduction after a few minutes or few hours of administration? So that it's a very toxic drug. So you don't want to give too much of it. So that was the challenge that was having. Now let's go and see what exactly was done. Yes, Piyush, do you want to say anything? Have you said it? Piyush, have you said it, or do you want to add anything?
Oh yes, sir. I told.
Okay, you tell it. Now let us look at. Let's look at what did. Yeah, let's see what happened then. So we go to the next slide and look at what this could be done. So you are right that she challenged the extraction protocol, but she didn't go to modify the parameters only by her intuitive understanding. What did she do? She went back to an ancient text, 1700-year-old text. Handbook of Prescriptions for Emergency Treatment by Gi Hong, that goes back 1700 years. And what it recommended was that this plant, wormwood, or ringyao as it's called, it was soaked in water, wringing out the juice and drinking it. It was not boiled. So then she says, that gave me an idea that heating involved in the conventional extraction step might have destroyed the active components. You know what? I asked this question in our BIS, Biotechnological Innovation Ignition School, where we help our undergraduate students and earlier postgraduate students to develop protocols for various herbal extracts and other microbial extracts. And we almost take solvents as given. We almost take boiled extraction as given. Very seldom would we go for soaking at room temperature and then taking decant material and then taking this test. The default condition in our mind is boil and extract. Yeah, am I right? Is it true? In majority of the papers that you publish or you may have reviewed, in the extraction method, have you come across methods which have, what is the proportion of papers which will use a boiled extract of herb rather than the cold extract of the herb? Anybody? from your experience, from your readings? Anybody? What do you recall? I mean, what is the gut feeling? If you were to do something, how do you start generally? How does your mind work? Would you extract it by boiling, by and large? Is that true, or is it just my assumption? Boliye?
Sir, extracted by
Sir, by boiling.
By and large? Okay, let's go further. So here is a scientist. We are also working on the plant after the initial reports came in mid-80s, early 90s. But here is where the turning point is coming. We would very seldom study an Ayurvedic text in which the same plant may have been used for similar indication and may have been extracted by a method different from the one that we are following. How many times in our references do we find reference to the text which have been used for this purpose? Very rare. Okay, so let us see what she did next. So as they mentioned, the problem was that they were purifying the extract to remove acidic portion, which had no malarial activity. As you know, you do HPTLC and all that. And then they gave the extraction number 191, which could clear the parasite when tested in mice and monkeys. So they presented their work in 1972. 1967, they started. 5 years have passed. And they identified a colorless crystalline substance as the basic element, which was later on called as Artemisinin. So they started working on that, pure crystals, published data, and now they had to establish safety. They had very difficult. So what did they do? They took the plant extract themselves. Oh my God, this is not advised. I'm not advising you to do that, but they did it. And those patients in Hainan province who took the extract got better, while those given chloroquine did not. So this was a desperate situation. Now, what do? So they realized that another combination is required. Just now, one of you mentioned that. And this point is very clear that the artemisinin level went down after some time. Some other drug was required to obtain and sustain a cure. 1979, mind you, 67 we started. So now 12 years have passed. First report is published. And this, by then, it has been tested on 2,000 people, but the story is not complete. In 79, they were working with Roche Far East Research Foundation, Hong Kong, and they found that this result was very encouraging. So they report in 84 that if this was combined with other drugs, it had a rapid rate of parasite clearance. There was a WHO UN meeting, 1980. There's a mistake here, 1981, it should not be 81. Maybe, yeah, 81, because 67 they had started, 81. Professor Tu presented this study, and then she talked about many other combination of drugs and so on and so forth, and the fact that it has got a lot of attention.
నువ్వేమైనా జనాల నగల ఆభరణాలు కడుగుతున్నావా నువ్వు కూడా జనాల మురికి బట్టలే ఉతుకుతున్నావు
Sorry. Please. So they could find a solution by using 5,000 years of traditional knowledge. Now this is our effort. We developed RT-Caesar, a combined effort of CMAP and CDRI, and this was taken up for drug-resistant malaria. It has been marketed by several companies, exported to Kenya and Sudan, but the story actually, unfortunately, does not go further. Why doesn't it go further? What have we learned from it? Good science and good knowledge of traditional art both have to be blended with no concession at either end. We are not giving concession to the fact that, look, now the inhibitory effect have come, but if I increase the dose, it increases toxicity. If I reduce the drug, if I give the drug, the effect goes down. What shall I blend it with? What derivative should I follow? What should I combine it with? Which function? I mean, this is a case of synthetic chemistry now. You're trying to structure the molecule in such a way that it will stay stable, not degrade very fast, and at the same time show its functional property. So there is a lesson here. One lesson is about collaboration, collaborative research. If there's a crisis and we have to find a solution, can we work together rather than everybody trying to find individual furrow, drawing individual furrows, rather than combinedly distributing that problem into, let's say, 15 different components or 500 different components. You know, when OSDD was started, open source drug discovery, during Professor Samir Bhamchari's time, that was a very interesting experiment. I don't know how many of you have read about OSDD. How many of you know about OSDD? Anybody knows about OSDD? Ashwini, we should invite sometime Professor Bhamchari to show them the example of what model of OSDD was evolved at that time and how it helped young scientists could propose a pathway, and a professor, senior professor, would join that group as a member of the team under the leadership of a student. Why? Because the pathway that a student has suggested, the professor didn't think about it. And on that pathway, they will develop a molecule which will target the drug. Because as you know, in TB, for 20 years, we have not developed a new molecule. That was an amazing experiment. And I will talk to Samir, and we will arrange an interaction with him, because you should hear that story. How did the young students were allowed to be leader of a particular target which they have discovered, an idea, and then other people had to sort of rank it, score it. So you became a leader not just because you claim that your pathway is better, but other people should agree or endorse. And if many people endorse, then you are now supposed to form your team. And in that team, anybody from any institute can join. It was virtual. And then, of course, you will be allowed to take up the actual experiment. But a lot of simulations took place, and a lot of new experiments in organization of science took place when people worked under. They didn't care. There was no question of under. It was a team being led by someone who has an insight. Now, second thing that we learn is that the knowledge that we have, the conventional approach that we have followed, should not become an enemy of a breakthrough. When I wrote a paper a long time ago on patents on neem, W.R. Gray's company, which had filed some early patents on neem, in one of their patents, they had claimed 200 different kinds of solvent for extracting azithromycin and its derivatives for control of certain pests. 200 and all. I can send you the reference if somebody is interested in that patent. And you can search on USPT, Google patent, you will find that paper. Many years ago, I'm talking about, when the debate just began, 90s. 200? You pick up the student research, and you mentioned, in the protocol, you mentioned that we will select this solvent. But am I right that choice of solvent sometimes is bound by our convention rather than by our good science? Am I right? Am I generalizing too much? Anybody would like to challenge what I'm saying? Let's say you have found some extract. Who has tried the maximum number of solvents for extraction? Anybody would like to give an example? I have tried 50 solvents or 50 different variations of solvent. Forgot about 200. Anybody? How do we give a fair chance to a knowledge system? I mean, if our protocols are restrictive, if our range of assumptions are too restrictive for allowing fuller potential of the knowledge system, then naturally we will find limited results, and then we will reject the system of knowledge because we'll say it doesn't work. It doesn't work, or the method we chose made it not to work. That is also possible, isn't it? I'm not arguing that everything that people will claim will work. No, some of it will not. So that is the second thing, that protocol, whether it is hot water or cold water, whether it is X solvent or Y or whatever else. And then, of course, you will go on. Subsequently, it becomes any other research, because once the compound is extracted, once you have made it stable, once you have been able to identify that it remains available in the body, then you are only refining and reducing any side effect if there is, making it final product. So that becomes easier. But to come to that point, there are so many pitfalls where we can go wrong. And we don't listen to people properly. We don't study the knowledge properly. If you look at, and this I will agree that there are many databases, if you look at, we just take this plant, this medicine, that is it. The protocols by which people have used this, we have not paid as much attention to these protocols. Proving it wrong is so easy then. So let me stop here and ask you as to, let us look at an example now from material science. Anybody would like to speculate on a material science, on metals that we use for our food, different vessels, materials of vessels, and their possible scientific evaluation? Who would like? Some material sciences student? We use many materials in our traditional vessels. Is there a good research to show which vessel has what effect? You know, under midday meal scheme. Yes, go ahead, please.
So we use iron vessels, and by using these iron vessels, the iron deficiency or the balance in the body of iron is maintained. It is.
But you know that in 80% households, iron vessels have been replaced, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So where did we falter? I mean, could we have given this knowledge? You know, in midday meal scheme, millions of children are given food cooked in aluminum vessels, right?
Yes, sir.
You know the toxic neurotoxic effect of aluminum?
Yes, sir. So because they are yes, sir, easy to handle, because when we cook in iron, there are difficulty of getting cleaning and all that. So
So as a scientist, tell me one study. I just want one study coming from any lab in the country which warned the government that if you continue to use aluminum vessels, you will have a deleterious effect on the neurological growth and development of children in the government school. Show me one study. Anybody, please search. You can search. You can go to the net and search. Show me one study. What role did we play then as material scientists and as food scientists? Such a huge scheme, millions of children are being given this food cooked in aluminum vessel, and there is no warning to the society as to what will it do to the children. Please find out and tell me just quickly. Somebody? Who will tell me? Somebody should find out. So all of you can search. Yes, go ahead. I want scientific study. There are many news items. I found some studies, but please, you must do that. In our country, I have got a study from Bangladesh, but I want to know Indian study, which has looked at evaluation of different kinds of aluminum or stainless steel pots on the children and then their effect, what has been a clinical trial for that matter. Please, anybody? Anybody?
Hello, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Sir, very good evening. This is Ajit Khan from CSIR Empri Bhopal.
Yes, please, go ahead.
So there are lots of harmful effects of aluminum metals.
Yes.
Uh,
So there is a study, Indian study.
reaction with the acidic substances, aluminum reacts with the acidic food, like
Yes,
lime, tomato, and vinegar. This makes aluminum ions dissolved in the food. Eating such
correct.
food could be the further lead to several health issues. So many hazardous effects are there with
Yes.
the acidic substance.
So what I'm saying is that where is the policy advice? Have we given a policy advice to these policymakers that if leaching is found during the food cooked in this vessel, what effect it will have on the body?
Yes, sir. Our grandparents, our mother and father are also cook the foods in the different types of iron vessels. To commonly add some irons in the absence of hemoglobin in the body, so we can cook the iron vessels. So there should be a guideline for the possible use of iron vessels, sir.
No. I'm not getting into the. I'm not jumping to what we should do. Why I'm trying to find out is what have we done as a scientist to
Yes, sir.
give guidance to the policymakers. Policymakers are giving guidance which vessel should be used for children, for feeding our children, right?
Yes, sir.
Now I want to know, and obviously there are studies which show that there is very little leaching. They say that there is a leaching, but very little leaching. Okay. When you say very little leaching, how many microgram do you need to have effect on your nervous system? That study, that part has not been done in many of these studies. So obviously you need to study with the help of doctors, physiologists, chemists, material scientists. Many people will be required, isn't it? So I'm trying to ask, where is the study? Where is the advice to our policymakers as to what will happen to the children if they continue to eat food cooked in? So let me show you some study where we're trying to support the judgment. I mean, what the decision of the look at this. There is a study by Dr. Samwell and others, 2006. All right, leaching of aluminum from utensils during cooking of food. And what is the finding? Leaching of aluminum during the preparation of various traditional Indian food was found to be negligible. With hard anodized aluminum utensils indicate the advantage of using such vessels for food over simple aluminum. Simple aluminum. Now, what we use are simple aluminum, right? And indalium utensils. Cereals contribute a smaller amount of aluminum to the total daily intake than legumes. All right, so proteins must be interacting with the aluminum better than, or binding with it more than the carbohydrate. Fair enough. Now, when you say small quantity, what is the safe quantity? Is it smaller than the safe levels? That is not given in this study. So what will happen? People will think, oh, it's safe. Safe. But where is the safety established? There's no establishment of safety in this. I'm saying, look at this study. Same. This is a Bangladesh study. Role of aluminum appears to be insignificant. What do you mean by appears to be insignificant? Have you done a study? Have you found out what is the level there should be? No, but we are giving. So, there are studies. I mean, you all will work with industry. Industry will like to promote certain materials, isn't it?
Yes.
Naturally, because they're cheaper, easier to manufacture. Who will bring out the safety aspect? Who will bring out what society needs? So my question is, as a scientist involved in producing knowledge that has an impact on society, what is our responsibility? Yes, Manmohan Singh, you wanted to say something? Go ahead. Are you saying, Manmohan Singh, did you want to say something? Unmute yourself and then speak. Or anybody else? Piyush, your hand is raised. Are you okay earlier? Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, I don't know about this, but I was a kid. Then I heard one of my very old person in our family used to say, "Ki aluminium food in aluminium, utensils were used to serve to the prisoners in British British India, and we should not use it." And they used to ask whenever they to go to a family whether you use the iron kadai or aluminium kadai or whatever. So they didn't tell us the reason, but they actually made it an economic difference कि जो अमीर लोग होते हैं वो आयरन कढ़ाई में खाते हैं, ये एल्यूमिनियम वाले तो गरीब लोग खाते हैं, प्रिजनर लोगों को खाना देते हैं. So there was a difference. I heard that. And about the aluminum and Alzheimer, I could not find any particular. They are talking about the percentage, what intake you are having of aluminium. There is an article which showed that there should be 1% of the more than, there should not be more than 1%, but they are not quite clear about what of the 1%.
So it contributes to cognitive dysfunction, isn't it? Alzheimer's disease. Now the question is, if it is found, it is known that it's neuropathological, then studies should be done to find out as to what level of accumulation bioaccumulation takes place in our body, isn't it? Does it degrade? Does it accumulate? If it accumulates, then even though per dose the level may be low, but after a while, maybe 1 week, maybe 1 month, maybe 1 year, the accumulated level will cause neuropathology, isn't it? So where is the study which will demonstrate to us what we should do? Now look at this. This is the kind of study that I'm looking for. And I'm asking that, why isn't this such a study taking place in our country? This is my question to all of you. Now, this is a study, what? Alzheimer's Society, okay? Alzheimer's Society. There is a news about this. Here is the evidence behind the presence of metals such as copper, zinc, iron, aluminum. Can certain metals increase the risk of dementia? And they are trying to say that there's likely to be a relationship between naturally occurring metal and development and progression of Alzheimer's disease. They're not saying it causes, but there may be a relationship. And these metals are essential to the healthy function of our brain. So further research into. Now, look at this, how they are trying to find metal with the food, what is their tolerance. Copper is, of course, helpful. So copper will be looked at. Then higher level of iron were first to put in the brain of people with Alzheimer's. It has been shown that iron as a zinc and are linked with Alzheimer's protein, amyloid and tau in the brain. Not too much of iron, not too much of copper. Because copper has toxic element, toxic compound, copper sulfate. When you put the bottle in the copper, there's a green lining, as some of you know already, that is copper sulfate. Oxidation takes place. Now, naturally, that will cause loss. Zinc has been shown to reduce the toxic effect of amyloid plaques. So, Cascode vessel, which has zinc, has a positive effect. Where are these studies? Where are these studies in our country to show as to how our body reacts to that? That's my question. That's my question. And if traditional knowledge has some pointers, these pointers will remain at anecdotal level, or we will ever develop a good scientific basis. This is the question I'm trying to repeatedly ask, and I'm not getting a good answer from you as yet as to what is required to be done so that and we will focus for some time on materials or various metals. Will anybody tell me as to what should be done so that these questions are answered empirically and with good science? Please switch on your videos. Please switch on your videos. Please switch on your videos. I want to see your faces. Please switch on your videos. Yes. Tell me, what should we do? Or should we do anything at all? Or should let business as usual continue? कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है सर, आप क्यों परेशान हो रहे हैं? इतने साल से तो हम लोग जी रहे हैं ना, फिर आगे भी जी जाएंगे. What's the problem? Poor suffer, let them suffer. Yes, Ashish.
Sir, we can carry out a study to find out that when different proportions of these elements are entering the body, what is the effect. And some people are also doing cognitive studies on it, and they are developing mathematical models also to study the chemical changes related to the neurons with the brain activity also they are doing. But somehow all these researches are not combining up as a whole to find out something what you say, to find a conclusive evidence of anything.
So what we need to do is, as you rightly say,
we need to have a proper plan about it and dedicate few years to it and have a systematic studies being done simultaneously and then combining all of them together.
You know, all of you take courses. So if in certain courses we have to do some experiments in our courses to understand the protocols, to understand certain instruments, to understand certain, isn't it? Now these experiments that we do to learn the science, if these experiments instead of being routinized would be meaningful, then we don't need any extra effort, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. That is correct.
So those experiments where, let us say, we are talking about leaching of minerals in the food or in the solvent or in the solution or whatever, or water, let us say, by the boiling water. Many of you know that the vessel that the chai walas use are these vessels, isn't it? Chai kisi banate hain wo log.
That is correct.
Steel के बर्तन में तो चाय बना के नहीं पिलाते आपको.
Yeah.
है ना? पीतल का बर्तन भी नहीं होता है वो. वो तो एल्युमिनियम के वेसल होता है.
When we are using in home, we can have like a dual type of vessels are there.
No, अभी Ashish,
but when we are having outside, it is generally aluminum only.
No, but what I'm saying, Ashish, we don't have to rush to the inference.
Yeah, that is correct.
I mean, it is too early to say what we should do. That becomes the normative dialogue. हमें normative dialogue नहीं करना, हमें scientific dialogue करना है. We want to believe something only when there is a rigorous evidence for it, and that evidence must be, the protocol of the evidence must be debated.
Exactly.
So let's say if we spend next 40 minutes, 35-40 minutes in making certain protocols about certain kind of knowledge that you will all select yourself, and then some of you present those protocols and we critique those protocols, right? So that we can then see how much improvement can take place if this protocol is debated collectively. I'm not questioning the knowledge of any one of you. You're all expert, you're all knowledgeable, you're all very good in science, accepted. But let's say somebody in NPL has access to instruments which can measure the leaching intensity as the boiling is going on, let us say, because they can measure very minute levels of leaching. So they might say, sir, अगर आप 15 मिनट से 10 मिनट तक करेंगे बॉयल तो प्रॉब्लम बहुत कम है, लेकिन जहां आपने 10 मिनट से 15 मिनट कर दिया, एकदम उसकी जो लीचिंग एफिशिएंसी है वेसल की, मेटल की, वो बढ़ जाती है. सपोज आई एम जस्ट स्पेकुलेटिंग. एनीबॉडी फ्रॉम एनपीएल हियर?
Yes, sir. I am from NPL.
हाँ,
I am from NPL only, sir.
आशीष समझ गए मेरी बात को मैं क्या कह रहा हूँ यार, क्योंकि टेम्परेचर का ये लीनियर इफेक्ट नहीं होता ना भाई.
That is correct, sir.
है ना?
When the temperature is, the gradient is higher, then only leaching will be higher.
70-80 डिग्री तक शायद इफेक्ट कम आए. तो अगर आपने पानी, अगर धीमी गैस पर आपने काम किया, हो सकता है नुकसान कम हो, और अगर आपने फुल गैस पे किया बॉइलिंग तो शायद लीचिंग जल्दी हो जाए. हो सकता है ना ये बात?
बिल्कुल हो सकता है.
ये तो साइंटिफिक क्वेश्चन है, मतलब हमारे पास कोई इसका जवाब नहीं है.
नहीं सर, हो सकता है. मतलब इसका प्रोटोकॉल बनाना सर बहुत इजी है एक्चुअली. इनफैक्ट अगर आप छोटा सा सेटअप आप प्लान करेंगे तो इट इज वेरी इजी टू डू.
Ashish, but that is the point, that if you and somebody from CFTRI here, anybody from CFTRI? फूड साइंस का कोई स्टूडेंट है यहाँ पर? न्यूट्रिशन का कोई स्टूडेंट है? food science, nutrition, physiology का है कोई physiology का, who has background in metabolic pathways, physiology. कोई MBBS है अपना स्टूडेंट जिसने डॉक्टर मेडिसिन करके फिर साइंस में आया PhD करने के लिए, ऐसा कोई है स्टूडेंट? Anybody? Anybody who has got understanding of nutrition? So maybe, Ashwini, we can find out some students from CFTRI. Maybe they are not present today, but they may be in this course. We can involve them. Mamta or anybody else? Anybody else is there who has interest in human physiology or human health or human, or let us say, I know that IVIG had there was a professor who had done a lot of work on ataxia, on neurological problems. She has a very large database of ataxia, 10,000 patient data or something. I'm forgetting her name. Dr. Mukherjee or something like that. Anybody from IVIG from here? They may know her name. So she has huge database on neurological diseases. My point is that if we want to establish a small question, we need to know the physics of it, we need to know the chemistry of it, we need to know the biology of it, we need to know several other dimensions of it to be able to answer a simple question. What happens when I every day take tea, or workers of our country at construction sites or in offices take tea in aluminum vessel every day and boil the tea, जैसे गुजरात में तो चाय को ना खूब उबालते हैं पानी के अंदर, तो वो जो तरीका है उबालने का, उससे क्या होता है वेसल के अंदर, वेसल का क्या लीचिंग होता है? That's a question nobody has asked, and millions of people in our country. Yes, Piyush.
I found a paper on clay and lead acetate.
Yes.
They have boiled it. I have shared it in the group, in the chat.
Yes. What is that? Just mention briefly. So, what have they done?
It is about the evaluation of the lead levels at boiling water in a clay pots.
And clay is safer. Clay must be found safer.
But they experimented on rats. They
and what did they find?
So they found high creatinine levels, high cholesterol levels.
Oh my God!
Compared to the negative control. Maybe I'm not from a particular biology background, so
but
it's good. It's good, sir. You have a look on that.
But you know that the clay from the ponds which are having paddy growing areas will have very high silica content. So it depends upon clay of which region or which cropping system. What are the residues that are going into the clay? Which minerals are going? In paddy regions, silica could be very high content in clay. And these clays obviously may have different properties than the clays, let us say, in sorghum area or millet area.
Basically, it is about designing the experiment properly. That whatever they have taken as a clay should also be mentioned, that we are using the pots from this type of clay, which might be inherently having higher doses of lead.
Not might, we should do analysis. Yeah, आप लोग के पास instruments
this has to be done.
You have
it is about having proper.
My point is, why wouldn't we go into very precise measurement issues in our protocol? Yes, Pirita, please.
I wanted to just add that when you're talking of vessels, there's no standardized procedure as in how the vessel is made. As in, if we talk of clay pots, for example, the temperature to which they're heated, etc. I mean, that also will play a role. I mean, how the vessel is made. I mean,
no, you're right. Baking at high temperature, 300 to 400 degrees is normally the temperature at which the clay pots are generally heated. And when you have when you have coated clays, they are coated at the temperature of about 300, then again heated, sometime up to 600 also. There are certain kinds of furnaces where temperature can go to 600. There was a Russian Russian potter who we invited from Siberia. I had gone to Siberia, so I was talking to my friend there, and I saw some beautiful clay work. So Sultan, his name was Sultan. So he came to India. I organized his workshop with our clay potters, and he would put milk at intermediate stage of heating the clay vessel, and this milk will seal the pores of the clay vessel such that this will now become a vessel which will not breathe, so to say. And now you can use this clay vessel like a metal vessel with no perforation whatsoever. Now, what a technology! Like the traditional technology of Siberia, we brought to India because we wanted that storing vessels. Now, if you don't want to use glass, you don't want to use plastic, and you want to use clay vessel, and certain kinds of things can be stored in clay better than other vessels, then how to ensure that there is no leaching effect taking place from those vessels? And this was an example of how you make leak-proof clay vessels by using milk or treating the vessel at an intermediate stage of heat. And they will train them that at what stage you have to put the milk and then heat it again. So what I'm saying is, you're absolutely right. How the vessel is made has a bearing on its properties at that temperature. So we must, now these are the questions. My point is, if we want to do a good science, we want to validate or invalidate a traditional knowledge claim or informal science claim, then we should parameterize the protocol in a manner that we try to make as many dimensions as possible parameterized so that we can see the effect of the, if this, then that, we can control for certain variables and see the effect, so that we don't, by not specifying our model properly, error can take place because our model was properly not specified, So it's like modeling. We should do a model, we should create a model, experimental model first, and then be able to find out which parameters are likely to influence which way, and then look at literature and then find out. So therefore, there's a rigor that will help establish the effect of that particular thing. So material sciences have a great role to play. Now let me come to an example, and after this, I would like you to take time off to write the protocol. There was a cyclone in Odisha, you remember, some years ago, very major cyclone. And a lot of trees, about 15-20 lakh trees had fallen down. So I wrote to the chief secretary, who was a development commissioner and chief secretary, who knew me. And then I said, look, all the trees that you have fallen down, can you send us a list of these trees? So they send us the list. And I said, here is the knowledge that we have put together of these trees. Those trees which have fallen down outside the forest, we are not going to disturb the forest dynamics of the forest trees. But those which have fallen down outside the tree, these are the possible products that can be made. Timber, you sell it because politicians will be interested in timber. But the roots, leaves, and small branches, let them be used by industry for deriving certain compounds, extracts, phytochemicals, which can be used for drug, which can be used for coating. So there is a particular plant, and I would like you to find out, the extract of which, if coated on iron, will reduce its rusting. Can you find out that? Here is a biological substance. This tree grows abundantly there in Odisha and many other parts. Extract of this plant, the wood, bark, as well as branches, if coated on iron girder, will not rust, and the life of the iron bridges or whatever else that we do can be increased. It is a different matter that such an approach has never been used in metallurgy. Did you find that? Magnifier indica, one more. Ashoka, उसको भी देखो.
Area.
Huh?
Area. No.
The question I have asked is neem. Neem, I'm not sure whether it is coated on the iron. vessels, iron rods to prevent its rusting? I'm not sure. Chelidonium majus. What part is used? Leaf or bark? And for what purpose? Can you put the reference there in the chat? Meghna, put the reference. Now you see here that when there was a very major collapse in coastal areas, they found that the girders had got. This is about the iron making practices to February 2021. Scientific reports, and the paper is published about Chhattisgarh, tomographic techniques to postulate the hidden mechanism of superlative corrosion resistance, and they found that Agaria's post-metal treatment using metal working operation called hot hammering is highlighted. This also archaeology, materials, and material science. Well, that's okay. This is the. We also have another paper from IIT Kanpur, which looks at the carbon content, low carbon steel, for example, made by the tribals in Bastar and Chhattisgarh, and some parts of Chhattisgarh. So that's good. Now, the question that I'm trying to say is that these kind of issues where multidisciplinary research is required to validate or invalidate certain claims will also get you the top quality journal publications. So there is no trade-off in when somebody says, sir, if we work on it, we will not get good publication. Of course, you will get publication top journal. There's no argument about it. So you get good publications. Career advancement is not affected. And at the same time, you're solving real problems of society. So good quality science, good career progression, good outcome for society. और क्या चाहिए हमको? इसमें where is the hesitation then? कहाँ पर रुक जाते हैं हम लोग? Anyone give me a good reason why what I'm saying will not happen? We are trying, but tell me a good reason. Why would this science, this kind of research will not take place in CSIR? What are the barriers to such research? फिर उनको दूर करेंगे ना हम लोग. What are the barriers? Anybody?
Most importantly, it is the organizational goals which are already set, and we cannot deviate too much from them. We are already working on a certain direction, so we are not ready to take up any research which may be leading in, which will consume a little bit more time, which may lead to a better result also. But we are already too much set in our old ways of tradition and all our existing goals.
Now, that's a good, valid point that you mentioned, Ashish. How many of you decided the PhD problem yourself, and how many were given the problem by guide?
So I had decided myself.
You chose the problem?
Yeah.
And then you chose the guide, or guide chose you?
Actually, I had discussed with 2-3 guides previously before joining that I want to work on this kind of problem, and then only I took up the research.
How many of you chose the problem yourself, and how many were given by the guide? But first, let us look at how many. Let me do a poll, and let me get some data on this, because we will try to go to the root of this problem. Megha, can you do a poll? Where is the poll? Am I? Have you made me co-host?
Yes, sir, you are co-host.
Now, can you put a poll where the choice 1 is self-decision, choice 2 is decision by guide, and let us just people choose 1 or 2. Just put the poll.
Sir, I have to check once how to put it.
Achha, no, I will tell you. This is a poll. Where is poll? Polling. We have a polling choice. Why is it? Today I'm not finding that. Okay, well, let us find out. Just raise your hand. How many of you decided the problem yourself and not were given the problem by guide? How many of you? Just raise your hand on your one.
So should we raise hand if we had chosen ourselves, or should we not?
No, just raise hand if you have chosen yourself. So Ashish, you can raise hand.
Yeah.
आकाश दीप, आकाश यहाँ पे डाल दो ना, हाँ यहाँ पे डाल दो. मनीषा, देवेंद्र पाल, अश्मिका, तानिया. Am I right there to conclude, which was my hypothesis, that very large majority of you have been given problem by your guide? It is obvious, no, from the data that we have.
It is obvious.
Isn't it? It's obvious. I'm worried about it because even my master's, when I was working, my basic discipline is biochemical genetics. So I moved to economics and management much later. And when I chose the problem, I went to Professor Kakkar, who was at that time dean. I'm talking about 1970s. And he said, Anil, I've never worked on plants. And I said, I wanted to work on plant biochemical parameters of adaptability. He said, I've worked on microbial genetics. I said, I don't want to learn from you about the way genetics of plant works. I want to learn about how good research is done. He had worked with the president of the American Society of Genetics. At 35, he was a dean, very bright. He has published in Cell and many other top journals. So many of us adored him, and So I said, I just want to be. He used to take one MSc student and one PhD student. So I appealed to him to take me as his student. Of course, there is the other advantage that if you are dean's student, you get his lab. So you get unlimited supply of chemicals, you get a lot of liberty in doing whatever you wanted to do. So in that sense, there was a privilege, of course, of being a student. But more than that, my concern was to learn about doing good science, so I chose him. But I do realize that in many cases, you are allocated to the guide. Is that right? Am I right?
That is correct, sir.
And I think that system needs to change. We need to change. Ashwini, लिख लेना इस बात को कहीं पर. We need to, in a directors meeting, we will get this issue discussed. एक से मैं बात करूँगा.
Sir, actually,
may
I say something, sir?
Please go ahead.
Actually, in ACSR, what we are doing here as PhD, we are allotted within the first week or itself, who will be the guide and what will be the topic. It has to be written on the application form when you are joining here also.
No, I understand that, but I'm trying to, we can always change the system, isn't it? I mean, it will not be easy. It will not be easy. But my question is that if you are obsessed with a problem, there is a problem that bothers you. It may be a basic science problem, it may be it doesn't matter what kind of problem, but there's a problem that bothers you. Naturally, your motivation and your ability to dig deep into the discipline and find more and more ideas and better literature and whatever that you do will be enormously more than, let us say, if it's only a problem given. I'm not saying that problem given by guide is not relevant, but one of you raised the question that many times Ashish mentioned, you mentioned earlier that
I have
an ongoing program and we have to fit into that program. So scope for deciding societal problem is limited unless the guide decides to take that problem, isn't it? That is what you were implying. And I understand that. I'm not blaming you all. I'm trying to understand the process by which we can encourage more and more possibility of working, having synchronous thinking in terms of how our society thinks, how we think, and then some problems. I'm not saying everybody will work on them, but at least everybody will do some experiments of that kind, as I said earlier in courses. So there you have choice, in a course when you are learning a method, you want to do letter separation, or you want to look at NMR. In physics, you want to study how the structures are determined. There you can take different materials for good finding out NMR, isn't it? You don't have to necessarily only use the material that guide is giving you. You could use any other material and they will not mind, because you have to show the method of doing it and how you calculate and how do you work out the structures, isn't it? So there's some degree of freedom that we have if we choose some material, some alloys, and then see Ashtadhatu. How much work have we done on Ashtadhatu? Eight materials that are blended for making idols in the South India. So naturally, I remember there was a paper that Ramasamy wrote on the acoustics of a mridanga. And if you know, even C.V. Raman had worked on that idea. idea at one time. And Ramasamy, I'm talking about this, who was secretary to DST and who was also director of CLRI. He published a scientific paper on mridangam and the kind of leather that the way they process the leather and the kind of sound that it produces, kind of shape that it gives. All of that, he did a scientific study of that to be able to show why certain kinds of kind of performance or a music performance was able to, you could generate that, what was the physics of it and the chemistry of it in terms of processing the leather by which you tie on the both ends of mridangam. So there are sometimes possibilities, but when you become full scientist, you will have full scientific meaning. You get absorbed as a professor or as a senior scientist or a scientist, full-time scientist in a lab or in a company. Maybe you will have little more degrees of freedom. The papers that you shared just now about, Meghna shared about how different plant extracts can be used for treating materials. I mean, all these papers, that Arabic journal, and there are of course other papers, some are there in Indian journal also, demonstrate that these questions are not being asked only by us or by me. These are questions that we have asked in literature. History is full of such questions, but somehow in our society wants to get results, scientific data based on good rigorous research to challenge their assumption. We will be doing something wrong. You have to tell us why what we're doing is wrong. If there's a belief that you can't eat bitter gourd with yogurt, tell me what is the science of it. If it is right or wrong. If it is right, give me the scientific reason. If it is wrong, give me a scientific reason. So perhaps we need to do some experiments to be able to question the attitude of questioning, skepticism, debate, dissent, and diversity. These are necessary questions which will help our knowledge system to grow. And those questions, how do we try to find space? So let me suggest, if you all agree, that next 30 minutes, each one of you, either in group of 2 or 1, as you decide, I will leave it to you. Take up any one particular problem or knowledge in any discipline that you wish to pursue. It could be material science, it could be the kind of clays that we use, the kind of metals that we use. It is the chandi ke bartan mein kyun khana khana hai bhai? What is the role of silver in our, find out, tell me. Why children should be fed on a silver की छोटी सी गिलास में हम बच्चों को दूध पिलाते थे ना भाई, तो ठीक है, क्या कारण था उसका? What is the role of metals and minerals? What is the role of clay? What is the role of plants? What is the role of other chemicals? What is the role of fermentation? Take up any problem that you have already identified in the previous class, or you want to pick up something else, and just write a protocol with some references. How would you test it? And then we will invite, yes, for example, for immunity. Yes, that's a good question. Anything you can you choose the target, so to say, the effect that you want to study. You choose the pathway, and you choose these material sources, the process that you want to follow. And then, yes, Ayushi, you want to say anything? Go ahead, Ayushi. Or is it the previous hand that you had raised when I asked the question? Ayushi?
Yes, sir. It was previous one, sir.
Previous. Okay.
But I can say
Go
on
ahead.
this matter also, sir.
Go ahead.
Sir, actually, silver is assumed to be a good for health, sir. So we used to give it, like you said, children's in those silver vessels because of its some facilitating properties. But overuses can be dangerous also, sir, because silver is a product that can be toxic also, sir.
My question is, these are ifs and buts. A lay person would not be able to decide based on what you just said. A lay person, a person on the street, wants to know a little more precise advice. Supposing I put 1 rupee silver coin in a glass of water overnight. Should I take that water every day? Should I take that water once a week? Should I take that water once a month?
Right.
For boosting my adaptive profile, what should I do? Give me precise advice.
Yes, sir. There should be some minimum limits, sir.
Something will have to
limits.
something
yes,
you
sir.
should mention. So
Yes, sir.
my question is that there are a lot of beliefs in our society, unquestioned beliefs, beliefs which have been carried on like that. And this is not good for growth of science. We want our
Yes,
society
sir.
to question every belief. We want science-based approach, not faith-based approach alone. Science must guide us. So it is a two-way flow. We want to learn from people, but we also want to tell people about what good science is, isn't it? So don't get me wrong. When I'm saying
Yes, sir.
blending, it means both-way process. I'm not at all suggesting that what people do is always right. No, they can be doing wrong. And we need to give them information. We need to give them scientifically established protocol by which we can demonstrate that what they're doing is wrong. And hopefully
Yes,
that
sir.
advice will change the public perception and public behavior. So my suggestion is that we will, Ajit, you said non-toxic property of silver utensil. Of course, it is
थोड़ा नीचे कर लो ना फ्लैप को बस
antibacterial
बस बस इतना नीचे नहीं किताबें दिखने लगे संस्कृत की ऊपर करो
एक मिनट किसका फोन है किसका म्यूट कर लो हाँ तो yes you are right. I mean Tata's had made a water purification system where they impregnated rice straw with silver nanoparticles in water filter, though it did not work properly because they couldn't find a way of uniformly coating silver nanoparticles on the straw as a filtering system. So it didn't succeed in the marketplace, but they tried. And you're right that it has antibacterial properties, so water can become cleaner if is passed through nanoparticles. But some of you might like to work on traditional nanoparticles. I mean, you know that there are many methods. I've seen that even in Egypt, certain pottery was coated with nanoparticles way back 3,000 years ago. In Kajal, there has been a lot of debate that some particles in Kajal. People have asked, how can Kajal penetrate the eye cornea? Because there is no way the particles of normal size will ever go through. So what is happening? Is there a nanoparticle, and what does it do to the eye? Why would we? It's safe to use it. What is the harm it can cause? So all of those questions need to be answered properly. So will it be okay if you spend, there's a break time in between, you can take a tea, but let's say it is 6:48. Can we come back at 7:25? And can you, each one of you, either alone or in a group of two, I leave it to you, pick up any one practice which you wish and write one-page protocol, because I know that only two of you sent. That means our goal of getting 100 and 200 protocol, 200 pages, one page each from you will not work unless we give you time, and you will not get time once the class is over. So I thought, why not we give you time in the class itself, so that you don't have to put extra effort. In the same time, you can work it. And if you need more time after 7:20, we will extend it. So I will leave it to you. Take up any one practice that is close to your home, to your heart, either as a social problem you have identified or as a family knowledge you have identified, and you are intrigued by it. You're intrigued by it. You find it interesting, but you still don't understand why it exists or it works, if it works. So how will you establish that it works, if it does? And how will you establish the conditions under which it works? So that we do not overgeneralize. As somebody mentioned just now, that if you take too much, Ayush mentioned, if you take too much of it, it can cause harm. What is too much? I don't know how to find out too much. Tell me, give me an advice. I don't know anything about science. So you tell me, what is the way in which I can modify my behavior so that I can live healthy life, or we can have ecosystem which is healthy. You can take environmental problem. You can take up some certain kinds of traditional systems of treating water, for example, and you can try to see how can we make them better. I gave you example of Dhimaji, where iron-rich water is there. We still don't have a good practice. What kind of science we will use to make those filter systems that they have more efficient? You can take any problem that you wish, any traditional practice, any fermented food, or any material science, any object that you see, which you take. It could be human, it could be non-human, it could be for animals, it could be for environment, it could be for structural property. I mean, in Sikkim, they make houses on the rolling wood So during earthquake, the whole thing moves from left to right because earthquake movements are left to right, not up and down. So they have given the rolling system. So those architectural properties, those of you who want to study the structure or the construction could look at that and find out. So I will, is it all right? Is it understood clearly what we want to do? Any question about that? We will choose the problem on in the title. We will mention in 2-line abstract as to what are we trying to do in this 1-page review, one or more or whatever. And then with the help of references, we will mention how will I go about analyzing it, whether it works or not. What is some few selected references, 3, 4, 5, whatever, some review article or something, which tell you how people have studied it. Then find flaws with the review that paper, because as I showed you in case of aluminum, that they just mention insignificant. What is insignificant? Against what quantity? No question, no reference to that. You're passing your value judgment. There's not scientific statement. Give me a scientific statement. How much leaching took place and what is the safety level? How much can my body accept? Then you tell me that it is insignificant. So look at those kind of things and then develop a protocol. That's it. That's the outcome that we want. So that even if you don't do research, when we share these protocols on the website, some student somewhere in India or abroad will take up that and find good answers to that. All right. You remember that I showed you about magic fish? You remember anybody? Some of you remember that magic iron fish? Kani, aapko yaad hai? You remember the story of the magic iron fish? Anybody remembers when I showed you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
याद है ना आपको अजित?
बिल्कुल सर, बिल्कुल याद है. Magic iron fish is very essential and important for making iron in absence of iron and hemoglobin. In the food. Yes,
so उन्होंने 126 ग्राम का चार्ल्स वॉल्टर्स ने अपनी पीएचडी थीसिस की थी इस काम.
बिल्कुल सर.
कंबोडिया के अंदर. You can find out on the net. So Devinder, you wanted to ask some question before we disperse into the groups? Yes. No? Okay. So how should we do that? You will all be working individually, or you want to be in group of 2? How should you choose the group? Because if I randomly allocate, it may not work. So I will leave it to you. I would suggest that each one of you works alone. All right. And we meet at 7:20 and you will work on 1 page, just 1 page. You can do more than 1 page, but it's up to you if you want to do that, but minimum 1 page of a focused problem and a protocol and a justification and outcome. Is that all right? So let's start. Let's start, please. If anybody has any question, put in the chat and I'll be reading your comments. If any one of you has any comment, just put in the chat or send a message to me and I'll reply. Let us start. Each one of you pick up a problem, take a piece of paper or your laptop and just start. Take one problem and write. You have to write 1 page with references, with protocol, any one problem that you take up. The choice is yours. Either the one that you already selected or any other problem. Choice is yours. We are going to work on 200 problems, hopefully, or 200 different ways of analyzing problems. Megha, you can share one folder link where they can all upload. Megha? I hope it is progressing well. Pasupati Bharti. Yes, Pulati, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. So what needs to be done is, first you write the topic, that banana flower extract uh, for regular menstrual flow, and then go to the literature and ask how people have studied. So then you make a main paragraph of review, how people have looked at banana flowers. I'll show you some studies on that. These are references. Some of these are general, some of these are so there are a lot of references here, benefits of banana flowers for women. So you will look at them, and then you will find some parameters by which it can be systematically studied. So in terms of flower of what age, whether there's a difference of species, different at what stage should the flower be cut, has it been when bananas were small, when bananas were big, how many weeks or older, after the bunch comes in, should the outer leaf be removed, which parts of the product so it's consumed, whatever else. What compounds, there are many compounds have been indicated for that purpose. Established that benefit that you got is actually because certain ingredients in the flower. So I think we need to just do that. So just can do some down. I can put down some references here, which you can see. So there are papers which show exactly. There are of course newspapers, but we want some scientific evidence. So we need to look for scientific. This is 2019, but we should get scientific papers. You can go into Google Scholar and then leave it there. Yes, here it is. This is the research article. I'm giving you the link. You can download the PDF. This is from Food Science, Punjab University. Essentially for bleeding, also among other indications. So, since you have benefited, small debt that you have incurred, social debt that you have incurred, one way to pay back that debt is by putting together the literature, scientific literature, so that other people who may be unconvinced about it may also like to benefit from it. This is what our goal is. We want more people to. It is not just in India, there are papers from many places. 1 cup of curd now, whether you took it with curd or milk, that you will have to also mention what is the carrier, what role that plays. So, I would prefer that you look at scientists rather than only news articles. There are some studies. Now, this has also given the combination what it contains and what could have contributed. Look at these papers and then develop a method of validating it. That's what your goal is. Have you all written up? Do we come back? Is it you need more time? Hello? Do we need more time or? Not too many studies, scientific studies, but there are some. Yes, so can we get back or do you need more time? Maybe we can start with some presentations of those who have, we'll begin with non-plant based first, the material science, then we'll come to plants. We'll just have a few presentations so that we can see how protocols can be improved. 10 minutes more. Okay, Ashish, but if anybody is ready, then they can start. But otherwise, we can wait for 10 minutes. Not a problem. We can wait up to 7. If anybody wants to press start, you can start. Let other continue, and we will listen to 1 or 2 by 7:30 and then start. So anybody wants to start, you're welcome. If you've written up, or if you need time till 7:30, that's fine. Yes, Piyush.
Sir, sir, I could not write on this material science and all, but I have addressed a very traditional problems, explained by health professionals. The challenges experienced by them. So I addressed that only, the solution of that.
Okay, well, okay, that's fine. Idea was also that we will not find another student with your background to look at some problem material science. So we also want to draw upon your domain knowledge. But it's okay for the time being. But my suggestion will be that look up all the tools that you have access to and see how they can be used to elaborate a particular material science issue. For instance, the ceramics made out of the silt of different ponds having different kind of residues from different crops. I mean, nobody has done a systematic study as to which paddy varieties release how much silica in the silt, what property the ceramic will have. You know, the ceramic is a material of future. It can withstand up to 5,000 degrees centigrade temperature, more. In the space rockets, one reason why Kalpana Chawla died was that 2 of the tiles had come off, and therefore the temperature increased in the capsule. So ceramics are the only material which can withstand that high temperature when the shuttle come back to the Earth. So we have not really done a study of people's knowledge about quality of silt and clay, and then consequent use for ceramics. So very important that we study that. And so that's a very interesting problem. I mean, if you take clay, let's say from 50 different ponds of different regions, and look at their ceramic property and ask people as to what they think would be the best one, and then evaluate it. according to your parameters and see whether that criteria that they use is valid. That might be a way to do that. Also, in Bastar, there are people who use when you have to break the furnace for extracting iron from the ore. How do they decide what the temperature is right? Because it will become ash if it was burned too long or too much higher temperature. So they put a pipe on the surface of the furnace and hear the sound of the fire. And from sound of the fire, they determine the temperature. Now, this is a relationship nobody has looked at. What is the relationship between sound of the fire and the temperature? I'm not sure whether that relationship has ever been studied, but that's something which will reveal some new ways of measuring temperature. It seems far-fetched, but that's the way tribal people do. So if you look at some of these very strange and apparently strange ways of correlating some very precisely measurable variables in physical sciences, we could get some insights, some new ways of, new heuristics of understanding phenomena. I mean, we know about solar flares and their effect on atmosphere and all of that, but flares are inside any furnace. So how do we experience that? So it's okay what you have done, but I'm just saying that I still would like to persuade you to use your scientific knowledge, domain knowledge, to apply to at least one problem at some stage, not too long after, before you do it.
Actually, sir, we are now sent to field, and we cover a vast population there. So
No, that's
this
okay. What
thing
you have
was
done is
on my
okay. I'm
mind.
just saying, no, I agree with you. I respect what you've done. I'm only saying that if you find time, then see whether your domain knowledge can also be applied, because someone who has the kind of expertise that you have can analyze the problem of physical sciences or material sciences, which we will not find another student.
Sir,
So I
actually,
think,
my domain is technology and public health informatics. Well, I want to work in this.
oh, I see. Then it's fine. Then it's perfectly fine. Megha, can you share the folder where they can upload, or they will, of course, send by mail? Megha, are you? Yes, this is the Google. So she has shared the Google Drive, and you can upload in this drive. Is it all right? Can you try that? And then I will open each and we can discuss a few. Can you try to open it? Just to upload the files. I have not found any file so far, but just upload here. The drive's name is protocol ACSIR. Just add here. Those who have completed can add in this folder, Google Drive, which Megha had just shared in the chat. This is given in the chat. Just use this and so this is given here. You can also look it up at the chat. Please add your note here. Who would like to start? Not seeing many uploads as yes. Are there uploads? Not yet. One I'm seeing. So if you can, Piyush, also add in that what traditional treatment they have tried to do on their own, so that we can see why some people respond to the treatment better than others. Are there mitigating factors in their diet or in their own treatment that they have done or doing, which explain why some people respond better than others? That data, that information is missing from what you just mentioned in the health card.
Yes, sir. Can I share the experience, sir? One little experience while we survey the field.
Sorry?
So can you share experience, 1 minute experience, while we survey the field?
Yeah. Sure, why not?
Yeah. So whenever you go to a household, to a person asking him about his medical details, he is blank. कि पहले 5-10 साल पहले मलेरिया हुआ था और उसके बाद में मुझे नहीं पता. Even if we go for his treatment, we have to know कि he is G6PD deficient or not. Or even in the tribal areas, they don't know about their blood groups.
No, those are well-known problems.
Yes,
Question
sir.
now
And
is, unless you have diagnostics, diagnostics with the ASHA workers, tools with the ASHA workers who can collect this data at low cost in a decentralized manner, this problem, how would you solve this problem without those tools?
Yes, sir. So let me tell you, there are many target areas for health facilities, for health research institute like WHO. We are there, so we do general surveys in particularly malaria hit area or any particular disease hit area. So when we do a survey, we can distribute these cards whenever we check them, whenever we cover them.
My suggestion is, in the light of what we discussed, if you can find out people who in a region which is highly prone to malaria are not getting malaria, that means we start looking at exceptions. Why this village has no malaria when all the other villages around it have very high incidence of malaria? Is it something in the diet? Is it something in the genetic makeup? Is it something in some treatment that they are taking? What is the reason? We have not looked at hot spots of high performance. We have often looked at problem areas. We have not looked at solution areas. So my suggestion is, if you can slightly modify it, that when you do surveys, while what you are saying is of course important and should be done, but from the perspective of a malaria survey, let us say, if you can identify people who don't get malaria, as you know that people who have sickle cell anemia are resistant to malaria, that is genetic. There are certain tribes which don't get malaria because of genetic reason. So there could be other reasons why they don't get it. And we have not yet discovered them. We have not asked this question. Why in a region prone to malaria, some people are not getting it, or some communities are not getting it. So those kind of exceptions will give us clue about maybe there is a knowledge around people that in that region which we have not ever accessed and not. Yeah. All right, 7:30. So friends, have you written up? How many of you have written up? Deepak, Sandhya, Mamta, have you finished? Richa, Savik, Dipanjali, have you written up? I'm not hearing. Could you write the page? Huh? Could you write a page? We have not found anything else uploaded. Am I missing something, Megha, or is it? We
सर फोल्डर तो ठीक है.
हाँ ठीक है आ रहे हैं. Please upload, everybody. Those who have done, please upload. I will keep opening and sharing something. Okay. So Ashish, this is your material: aluminum, iron, copper, silver. Room temperature, particle size. Would you quickly summarize in 1 minute? You have mentioned the particle size, you have mentioned the temperature, you have mentioned the effect on. Would you also look at the acid, the pH? Ashish, would you like to look at pH also? Ashish? Unmute karo. So you have looked at temperature and particle size. Would you like to add
Yes, sir.
temperature, pH also?
Sir, pH will not be necessary unless we find out that certain metal are creating a pH issue also. Because
No, not metal pH. I'm saying a different pH leaching effect may be different. So for
But sir,
example, we
like-
know that
yeah,
in acidic environment, certain elements leach more than others. That's why we don't advise
yeah.
certain
So
sour
we have
vegetables to be cooked in
for that
brass
thing, one
vessels.
more thing has to be added. We have to identify that we may select a few type of items which will be used for finding out the environments. So basically what I have done is I am only using the distilled water data and the drinking water data. So
Okay.
this will give you a brief overview how to build up the next study.
Okay.
The
So
effects.
you may add maybe in the footnote or in the because pH is a very important part.
So like the type of spices you will be using, the type of
Correct.
vegetables you will be cooking, they will be different for those things also.
Yeah.
But like initial database, basically water, distilled water, and your drinking water data will be sufficient.
And you may also can add duration. How long do you?
That I have added already, sir.
Have you added? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Let's look at next one. Anybody else? We have only 2 notes as yet, friends. Why don't you upload, please? Quickly. Please upload. We have so far received only 2.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, sir. I sent you by mistake. This was for Ashish. This paper. Ashish, yeah. You follow this paper. They have done the same thing with the soil pots. Drinking water, distilled water and all.
Bhej do. He will be happy to see that. And he can modify the protocol then. So friends, what about others? Monica, Madhuja, Soumya, Sushmita? क्या क्वेश्चन आप लोगों की आपने लिखा? दीपा, साक्षी,
Sir, may I say something?
हाँ बोलो भाई.
Sir, the paper which you have shared now, in this they have fed rats with lead on their own. So this is the study what we want to do. What we want to do is that we say that keeping water in copper bowl is very.
There's a difference. Yes.
So we are studying that part of aspect.
You would like to look
The
at leaching. You want to look at leaching effect.
Leaching effect and what are the factors?
Leached material on
human bodies.
On human or animal body for that to begin with that. Yes.
But in this paper they have fed rats with lead.
ठीक है. Geetika, Aditya, Kikru, Madhu, Upendra, आप लोग अपना वीडियो ऑन कीजिए सब लोग और बताइए क्या किया. Please switch on your videos. Shubham, Brijesh, Chandrakant, Mercy, Pragna, Kirti, Vikas. Please switch on. Amal, Karthik Raja, Najakat, have you written up? Geetika, आपने लिखा?
Excuse me, sir.
Go ahead.
Sir, this is Ajit Khan, and I have written something about RO wastewater, sir.
Which is very high content of salt, but उसमें knowledge system कहाँ है? लेकिन कोई बात नहीं, आपने problem तो बहुत important ली है.
Sir, problem is there. Problem, sir, main disadvantage ये है कि सभी के घर में nowadays we are using the RO system.
Yes.
Aquaguard हो गया है.
That water is going in the drain.
वो 1 वाटर को सर 1 लीटर वाटर को फिल्टर करने के लिए बहुत सारा वाटर को वेस्ट कर रहा है. तो बहुत सारे लोगों को सर अवेयरनेस नहीं, उस वाटर को डायरेक्टली वो सिंक में डाल देते हैं या डायरेक्टली उसको यूज में नहीं लेते, तो बहुत सारा वाटर सर वेस्ट हो रहा है nowadays.
बिल्कुल सही बात है. That's a very serious problem. This has been studied though, but the designs of the RO systems are of course defective in this regard. Now new systems are coming which have reduced the wastage, but old systems all of have sometimes 75% water is wasted. You're right. It's a very important problem. Anybody else has written up protocol for testing? Shubham, Chandrakant, Devvrat, Kishan. भाई आप लोगों की आवाज नहीं आ रही है, क्या हो रहा है बताइए? आदर्श, पत्रकार, कीर्ति, आर यू अराउंड? व्हाट इज हैपनिंग? What's happening? I have not seen anybody else uploading anything, only two. Our idea was that we can have more protocols. Aziz, आपने कर दिया upload? कर दीजिए। सुरजीत, विकास, ऋचा, श्रीनिवासुलु, नेहा, लक्ष्मी आपने किया? लगामा, लक्ष्मी, मनदीप, कारवन आपने किया? सरबजोत आपने किया अपलोड? नहीं दिख रहा है मुझको। Any problem that you're facing? Shruti, Kripa? Bhai?
Hello, sir. Excuse me, sir. I want to say something.
हाँ बोलो।
Sir, my friend Priyanka Pravaka, she is also belongs to CSIR MP Bhopal, and this was she wants to tell about RO water system in MP.
बोलो। नहीं तो उसके बारे में बाद में बात करेंगे। अभी मुझे बताओ जो आपने प्रॉब्लम का प्रोटोकॉल बनाया है उसके बारे में बताओ, या कोई सॉल्यूशन निकाला है तो बता सकते हो, लेकिन अदरवाइज वी विल नॉट मूव।
सर सॉल्यूशन ही डिस्कस करना था, वो प्रियंका सर बताएगी सर सॉल्यूशन।
बताओ प्रियंका, ब्रीफली बताओ।
सर एक्चुअली सोल्यूशन ये जो वाटर वेस्ट हो रहा है उसको हमें पहले सबको बताना पड़ेगा। जो भी वाटर वेस्ट हो रहा है हमें उसको रीयूज करना है, या तो हम उसको रिपीट करके डिस्टिल वाटर बनाकर हम अपने लेबोरेटरी में यूज कर सकते हैं सर, और या तो हम
लोग उसको क्लीनिंग के लिए, सैनिटेशन पर्पस के लिए इट इज गुड वाटर, हाँ ना, सैनिटेशन में वो अच्छा रहेगा, बिकॉज सॉल्ट विल एक्चुअली हेल्प इन इम्प्रूविंग द सैनिटेशन क्वालिटी. It also disinfects little bit, so it is in fact good for sanitation.
हाँ सर, तो ये सब हमें सबको बताना पड़ेगा।
बर्तन को धोने के लिए भी अच्छा है वो, बर्तनों को धोने के लिए भी अच्छा है।
बिल्कुल सर, वॉशिंग क्लॉथ्स एंड यूटेंसिल्स आल्सो।
हाँ हाँ, बहुत बढ़िया है वो, उसको क्लीनिंग के लिए यूज करें तो बहुत अच्छा रहेगा।
We can also use for sir garden purpose.
गार्डन में रिस्क है थोड़ा सा, गार्डन में रिस्क है क्योंकि प्लांट्स में सॉल्ट कंटेंट का इतना ज्यादा होता है।
Sir, it's totally depend on type of water and type
what
of
kind of
wastewater which will be produced. Yes sir.
And every reason different water is coming, sir, na, that's why we can use the water for the gardening purpose, cleaning purpose.
गार्डनिंग में थोड़ा सा कॉशियस रहो क्योंकि सॉल्ट एक्यूमुलेट होते हैं सॉइल के अंदर, दे मे अफेक्ट द वायबिलिटी।
यस सर, और एमपी इस पे काम बहुत किया है। डॉक्टर आईबी थे, उन्होंने नैनो एड्सॉर्बेंट वेस्ट फिल्टर बनाया था सर, जिसमें जैसे हमें नॉर्मल आरओ फिल्टर में हम 3:1 मतलब 3 लीटर में से 1 लीटर पानी यूज होता था, बट जो आईबी सिंह सर ने जो इस पे नैनो एड्सॉर्बेंट के थ्रू उन्होंने ये बताया कि नो वाटर वेस्टेज, कोई भी वाटर वेस्ट नहीं होता, इनमें मैंगनीज का यूज किया।
मुझे भेजना उसका, मुझे उसका रेफरेंस भेजना।
Definitely
yes sir,
बिल्कुल सर।
Okay, anybody else has written a one-page protocol for validating people's knowledge? Anybody has tried to blend people's knowledge with the modern science? Anybody? Shinadu, Kuldeep? क्या हुआ भाई बताइए? There is one more which has come. आप लोग जितना किया उतना तो अपलोड कीजिए, उसके बाद में उसको इम्प्रूव कर दीजिएगा, उसको रिप्लेस कर दीजिएगा बाद में। At least you can upload what you have done. So, okay, so Ashish, you have only, ये क्या हुआ, incomplete file है क्या ये? अच्छा, you are still doing it. Okay, carry on, carry on, carry on. Okay, carry on, please. Anybody else? ये आपने डिलीट कर दिया क्या आशीष का? सत्यकांत, सत्यकेश, आशीष आपका जो ड्राफ्ट था उसमें कुछ एडिटिंग कर दिया क्या? चेक कर लीजिए।
No sir, I have not done any editing.
अच्छा, you have not submitted it. Okay.
Yeah, I have submitted sir, but I am not editing anything.
नहीं तो सत्यकेश ने शायद उस पर कुछ कम एडिटिंग हो गया उसमें, आप देख लो, दोबारा से अपलोड करना पड़ेगा आपको शायद, मुझे देखना।
मैं कर देता हूँ, मैं कर देता हूँ
तो चेक कर लो
सर। आई थिंक कनेक्शन का इशू है, इस वजह से शायद जा रहा है, मैं देख लेता हूँ सर।
देख लो, उसमें से कंटेंट दिख नहीं रहा मुझे उसमें।
ओके सर, मैं देख लेता हूँ।
So you please add that content again, और file name change करके दोबारा second file डाल दो. The file has been deleted, it seems. Anybody else has written? Anybody would like to share? Nilanjan, Avasthi, Richa, Tubalik. Let me go to further pages. Prabhat, Avriti, Kapil, Aman, Preeti, Shweta, Ayushi. आपने कुछ किया? प्रणामी, आपने क्या बनाया प्रोटोकॉल? Pranami? Pranami, are you there? Pranami? I'm not hearing you. Are you there? Upender, Divya, Aman, Ishita. क्या हुआ आप लोगों को भाई आज? What happened? प्रभात, हेमलता, पलक, विवेक, विभूति, प्रीति खेड़ा, अमन, क्या किया आप लोगों ने? कुछ लिखा? सागर, समीम, ओके, प्रशांत, भास्कर, जानवी, ऐश्वर्या, श्रवण कुमार, Meenakshi, are you there or you're all absent?
Good evening, sir.
Good. Bolo. Yes, go ahead.
So this is Gitika. Actually, I'm not able to upload it right now, but I wanted to see the effect of a very common spice, cinnamon, on health issues. Like it's known to reduce your blood pressure.
Send a mail to me. Send a mail to me. Please mail to me. If those who are finding difficulty in uploading, please mail it to me. Just mail. You have my email address, of course, or do you want me to write down? I'll write down here. anilg@ima.ac.in. Just send it to this address, or if you want, you can send it to anilg@gyan.org, whichever you want to use. Please send me mail, so that will be easier. If you're finding difficult to upload, doesn't matter. I will upload it later on. Big able to do that, but can't just. Okay, Amit, all right. That's all right. 2 minutes, not a problem. ड्राइव में कौन प्रॉब्लम आ रही है? हमारी प्रॉब्लम है हमारे एंड पे या उनके एंड पे?
सर साइन इन करना पड़ेगा उनको, ऐसे अपलोड नहीं कर पाएंगे।
साइन क्यों करना पड़ेगा? उसको ओपन कर दो ना, एनीबॉडी कैन एक्सेस।
हाँ सर, एक्सेस मीन्स सारे ही एक्सेस कर पाएंगे, पर उनको फाइल अपलोड करने के लिए गूगल अपने जीमेल में साइन इन चाहिए
ना जी। हाँ, वो तो नेचुरली मेल में से तो करेंगे।
हाँ, तो
तो
शायद वो वाला दिक्कत आ सकता है किसी को। मीन्स
नहीं, जीमेल अकाउंट से ही करेंगे अपलोड वो। अच्छा, दे मस्ट बी ऑलरेडी
साइंड इन टू द
signed into Gmail. Okay, so friends who have not opened your email account in Gmail, then you will have difficulty in uploading. So you send it to me by email. Not a problem. We will take care and we will download and then put them in the folder. But if you are opened your mail, then it is as well. Anyway, you have to open a mail account for sending it to me also. Manisha, आपने कुछ किया? सुनी? मनीषा, श्वेता, सुष्मिता, रविचंद्रन, मीनाक्षी, मरियम, तुषारिका, गरिमा, प्रशांत, आपने कुछ लिखा? अनुज, विवेक, अमन, लिखने में दिक्कत आती है ना, लेकिन जितना लिखना उतना लिखो। एक पैराग्राफ लिखो, नहीं लिख सकते एक पेज, but at least define how you will address this. The basic point was mention some research questions or some method by which, or pedagogy, a protocol about what you will do, and some review paper, so that you don't do what has been done already. Kuldeep, Srinivasulu, I'm Chinky, मैंने आपको अभी तक कुछ सुना नहीं है, लगामा आप बताइए, देखना। Anybody has done it? Okay, one has come. Let me open it. Moringatham. Let me see. Cotton sand. After a long time, I'm reading something by pencil. Filtered water is collected in another container. This water is used in kitchen. Okay, indigenous filter that you are writing and you want to check. Yes, this is a good point. I will only suggest that when you do this, I forgot your name. So about this efficiency of the traditional water filter, please do look at oxidized and non-oxidized form of leaching, because many times the water looks clean, but it has non-oxidized material, and then once you shake the water or you stir it, it gets oxidized. The iron gets oxidized in ferric oxide, something. So look at the quality of the water in terms of both bacterial, as you mentioned, but also the mineral. Do write your name on the file, please. How would I figure out otherwise whose file it is? Write your name. Anybody else? गरिमा, आपने किया कुछ? ड्राइव का लिंक डाल दो, मेगा दोबारा से डाल दो चैट में. मेगा,
हाँ सर.
डाल दो. See, I was hoping that you will not get time in your lab to do that, so we will use the class time to do this. But the experiment didn't work very well because most of you somehow have not yet uploaded, but maybe you're writing.
सर मेल में भी शेयर कर दिया है फोल्डर, अब सबको मेल में वहां से डायरेक्ट एक्सेस कर पाएंगे. तो
अच्छा, ठीक है, मेल में भेज दिया ना आपने लिंक. ठीक है. Yeah, that is good. Okay. Yes, I also got that file. Anybody else wants to share what have you chosen, the problem for validation? And what protocol have you thought about? Neha, would you like to mention briefly? Or Mandeep? भास्कर, ममता, क्या हो गया आज सबको बच्चों?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, I have just added a review, means a problem protocol for turmeric. Actually, in house we are for as a home remedy we use turmeric.
काफी लोग हैं, हाँ, उस पे तो काफी काम भी हुआ है ना टर्मरिक पे तो.
Yes, sir. But there is a study in which they say that means there is some problem as well, which is not yet
last year वो study आई थी, हाँ.
Yet it is not found that how much amount is unsafe for us. So for that we have planned a study. Means we are I and Divya, she is from biotechnology.
Is it for wounds or which purpose?
Anti-inflammatory.
आपने वो देखा है इसका जो रिव्यू आया था हेलेंस का?
I didn't found yet means.
मैं अभी डाल देता हूँ, एक रिव्यू था जिसपे बहुत डिबेट हुई थी, 2017 में आया था वो। I'm putting it there. वो रेफरेंस डाल देता हूँ, लिंक भी देता हूँ आपको। ये रिव्यू पेपर है, रिव्यू ऑफ इट्स इफेक्ट ऑन ह्यूमन हेल्थ. So once you look at a review, you will get at least up to 2017. Most of the studies is there. Good, Ashish. So this is the review article. Please have a look at it, and then if you need to modify, you can modify. Anjali, Mamta, anybody else? Mandeep, Kapil, Kartik Raja, Deepa, परिस्मिता, नजाकत, आपने कोई जवाब नहीं दिया अभी, आप कर रही हैं? प्रज्ञा, आर यू राइटिंग? मधु, मधु, Vikas has written something. Let us look at. इस पर जो रिव्यू आर्टिकल्स हैं उसको देख लोगे एक बार ही. So there's a review. There are several reviews and 2015 का है. For Ajwain. Anybody else is putting up? So Vikas, you may like to look up some of the recent reviews, and you may also see in different forms that people consume by soaking it in water or by fresh powder. Tanya has written up. Let us see. Yeah,
Okay,
this.
sir, I will do.
हाँ, वो देख लेना.
Yes,
और Tanya, this is good. Is incomplete. There is no such paper which gives us clear control of betterment of eyes. Yes. So yes, the goat milk for eyes. That's important. Very important, because there's several references about it, but we need more solid work. So there are also complex microbiota of raw milk that has also been studied. Good, that's a very good problem that you've chosen. Anybody else? Adarsh, Pragnya, Gurvinder Singh, Deepa, आप लोग डाल रहे हैं? Pranami has written. Pranami, आपकी फाइल कहाँ गई? अभी तो थी यहाँ पर. Pranami, इस फाइल डिलीट कैसे हो गई? अभी तो देखा था मैंने. Pranami, your file was there just now. Have you removed it?
So I uploaded it twice. Then there was some problems, so I'm uploading it again.
Ah, that's what I'm saying. I saw it and then it disappeared. So what have you looked at? Can you just briefly mention also when you're doing it? Nilanjan, Shruti, are you putting up? Are you uploading? Sakshi, Masood, Richa, Vityusha, Aditya, Devbrat. So what do you suggest? Should we, I mean, this is open, of course you can add it, but can you, you have got your, yeah, Devbrat, please, yes, you can do that. We will keep it open. We will keep the link is of course open. You can do it anytime in the night or tomorrow morning, but I would prefer if you do that tonight, otherwise you'll get busy with other things. So Swati, are you uploading? आप बताना चाहें तो बताइए. All right, Paswati, you can do that. So my suggestion is, I would suggest that you all take your time tonight to do that, but don't delay it beyond tonight or early morning tomorrow, because this is something that we don't want to miss. And I would hope that all the 200 who are there in the class, now we are left with only 138. Some have left. I can understand. There must be something which has come up, or connection may be some difficulty. I will hope that all of you will upload tonight. Is that okay? Is that all right? Possibility, Tanya, तुम आपने तो कर दिया. जो नहीं कर पाए हैं वो रात को कर देंगे आज.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Shravan Kumar, we. तो आप लोग कर दीजिएगा आज सभी लोग. मैं आप सबसे उम्मीद कर रहा हूँ कि आप आज कर ही देंगे इसको.
जी सर.
हाँ, ठीक है. Is that all right? Does everybody agree with that? Of course, you want to modify.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
All right, all right. We will then call it a day, but I'm hopeful. I'm sure those of you who are not speaking but were also uploading. So in that sense, it is a good thing that you've been working. We have received many, but my hope is that we will receive. We have not received even 1% of 5% of what we have. We are very. We have hardly 10, so that means a lot more to add. I did not find your again uploaded. You had some of you are having difficulty in uploading. Yes, Tanya, yeah, I can see that. Those of you who have not been able to upload, please mail it. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. You can mail to any of my address. That's okay. Yes, some of you have done it. Yes, Ajit and Priyanka, I've seen that. So, all right, friends, we'll close the day, but I'm hoping that you will all send your submissions tonight or tomorrow morning. Don't delay too much, because it is just your commitment to yourself. An idea is that your protocol should encourage others to take up validation. If I will hope that somebody or the other will come up who will take this problem forward. It makes a big difference when some scholars will put down the protocol, the path forward, and then others can do that. So, all right, good night to all of you. See you in the next class, and by the time we will also compile some of the good reviews and share with you all. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good
Thank you,
night,
sir.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.